Well, this isn't good. Palantir is a $5 stock, it seems. Apparently, there's a Seeking Alpha article that just came out claiming Palantir should be valued at $5 per share. So let's do this in a constructive manner. Now, this is not personal. I don't know the guy. I couldn't care less. But let's do it in a scientific manner. Essentially, in this article, they use two arguments that kind of, branch out into a little different arguments. So argument number one, or the headline number one, is that the business is not scalable and thus is not profitable. Argument number two, there's too much stock dilution and thus there's not enough in it for you as an investor because they either just issue too many stock as stock-based compensation to their employees and directors and officers, or they're just selling too much as far as insider selling, dumping the shares, and retail investors getting stuck holding the bag. If you read this article, you would think that there's a lot of retail investors getting roped into this company and getting left with the bag. The truth of the matter is that over the past 4 months, institutional ownership of Palantir, companies like BlackRock, Vanguard, Mitsui, a lot of different companies, ARK Invest, a lot of institutional investors are getting into Palantir right now. In fact, over the past 4 months, we've seen a 100% increase in institutional ownership from 350 million to 700 million shares within just 4 months. So that's the first thing a lot of people don't realize. Institutionals over the past 4 months, when everybody was basically going crazy, are buying up a lot of the stock. You can go to fintel.io and check me on this data. It's actually pretty easy and it's public. So there's no way for me to make this shit up. Now, the second thing I want to talk to you about is what the hell is going on with the profitability of Palantir. Obviously, the company isn't, generating classic profits. And that is being used against them as an argument of why you shouldn't be investing. Well, the thing is that you have to understand that operationally, Palantir is actually profitable. They just had operational profit of 220 million in the past year. So as far as operationally being profitable, they already are. Not to mention that they have over 500 million in free cash flow in the past 12 months. Now, the question is, if they're generating free cash flow, if they're generating positive operational income, why are they not making a profit for tax purposes? Well, the money is actually going back into the company for various things. For example, R&D expenses. But more recently, they just repaid $500 million of a loan, $550 million of a loan over the course of 2 years. They completely eliminated that loan. You know why, if you follow my channel, they're prepping for inflation before everybody else picks up on that. So they completely eliminated that. Now, that 550 million could have gone to dividends to the shareholders. The money is going back to make the company more robust as far as inflationary hedge and to basically put and invest everything you can get back into the company to build yourself up before the competition will come. And make no mistake about it, the competition is coming for Palantir. Now, right now, they're playing solo. There's nobody out there with a platform like Palantir's. There's a lot of different competitors, micro competitors in specific areas, but nobody's competing with them head to head as far as one software that does everything, one platform. That's about to change. Now, we know how these big software enterprise businesses work. They wait for you to make the money, they'll swoop in, and they'll take your lunch, which is exactly what I think they're planning for Palantir. I don't think they'll be successful because I think Palantir's product is so much better. Their relationships and their ability to offer you credits and, to basically loss leader their way into your business until they kill the competitors. All of this won't matter if Palantir has a superior product by a few levels. However, that will be a bloody fight. So Palantir is prepping for that. Make no mistake about it. And the only way to prep for that is not give away every cent you have into, increasing the share price and giving out dividends. That's a short-term strategy. If you want to do a long-term strategy as far as, thinking of the battles that are there to come, you want to kill that and invest in the R&D of the company to widen your lead, which is exactly why they're not profitable. The money is going into debt elimination, research and development, basically creating a moat, creating a lead before the big boys jump in and try to take their lunch. The other thing is, in this article, there's a whole different argument basically talking about the fact that Palantir is a dilution factory. Essentially, what they're doing is they're building dilution, it sounds, based on this article. They're diluting you. Insiders are selling. It's just, it's a festival of bag holding for the retail investors. And again, another false but very realistically sounding argument if you don't understand, how this thing works. So first of all, a lot of these guys, either intentionally or not intentionally, and I don't know which one is worse, they get confused between the outstanding shares as far as the float goes and the fully diluted basis. So let me explain here. I'm not going to go deep into nerdland, but the amount of shares that Palantir has issued have not changed since they went public. Since the DPO, the amount of shares on the fully diluted basis has not changed. There's the same amount of shares. Palantir did not issue new shares ever since they went public. I want to be very clear about this because you're going to hear, but Tom, the outstanding shares have gone up. That's called the float. The float is the shelf on which you offer shares to the public. But the amount of shares has not changed. Therefore, every single stock-based compensation that was granted in the past year was already taken into account as far as the share count before the company went public. So not a single share is now worth less because there was no new shares added to the company since they went public over a year ago. However, more shares are getting added to the float. The float is getting bigger, but every share is worth the same because whatever particle it owns out of the company has not changed. Now, confusing that is probably not as bad as doing it on purpose, but don't let these morons confuse you by not, checking what the actual story is. Now, the other thing is the story about the insider selling. There's a lot of narrative about how everybody's insider selling in Palantir. The truth of the matter is it's pre-scheduled 10B sales. Every time Alex Karp and any other executive or officer exercises stock options, because these are NSO, non-qualified stock options, those NSOs create an income tax liability even though you haven't received any money. So that's why whenever they exercise, they sell half of the stock to pay the tax, literally. I mean, it's kind of a known thing. Elon Musk just did it with Tesla, which is why it's mind-boggling to me how nobody sees that this is the exact same thing. They actually got the shares even pretty much at the same time about 10 years ago. And when they exercise, they actually need to sell to pay the tax, which is exactly every single share that Alex Karp sold over the past few months. It's just a straight up pre-scheduled sell to pay taxes on the executions of his options. Now, the good news are, if that sort of thing bothers you, which it shouldn't, because the SBC is already part of the share count, but if it bothers you, you should know he already exercised all of these, batch from 10 years ago. He's done basically mass selling. And the next time he's going to go through this selling spree again is about in 10 years because he just received a year ago another batch. So, we'll see you in 2030 with the new FUD. So my hope is that this was helpful for you to understand about Palantir, about their business, about how a $5 valuation makes absolutely no sense. I value the company anywhere from $25 to $35, even more on the high side. I think they'll get there, but I think at this point, it just becomes a test. If you're a real long-term investor, you don't care about the share swings. However, if you're faking it, you're probably feeling the heat right now. I don't know what to tell you. For me, it's a long-term story. I'm not concerned at all. If you enjoyed this video and you want to support this channel, $5 per month, you can join our Patreon. The link is going to be below and in the pinned comment. Thank you so much in advance. Happy FUD. We'll see you tomorrow.